Here's one of my hottest takes because it's August and there's nothing to talk about. The Sixers organization should be glad that they traded for James Harden because his actions and the events that unfolded during his time here in Philly actually helped set the team up for more success in the future and present in one of the weirdest ways possible. Wait, please don't click off the video. Please don't bully me in the comment section just yet. Just hear me out. I think I have some pretty good reasons as to why the James Harden trade was actually good for the Sixers, both now and for the future. It's important to give some context as to where the Sixers were before they traded for Harden. We just lost to the Atlanta Hawks in a heartbreaking 7-game series where we were the heavy favorites, but because Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons are the biggest frauds on planet Earth, we ended up losing in embarrassing fashion. And for those who were watching at that time, for those who were Sixers fans, you know that we were at the bottom of the barrel in terms of sports fandom. It was one of the worst feelings ever, just knowing that for so long we have been trusting this process, thinking that Ben and Joel were going to be superstars together and dominate the NBA because we were tanking for so long, being so trash for so long, and to get these results, well, to be frank, it was terrible, to say the least. You just sort of had to live during that time period to really understand what I'm putting down. But Ben Simmons sucks, and he sucked so much in that playoff series that his trade value plummeted. And it was hilarious because the following weeks, we really got a sense of where his value was. Reporters were saying that the Indiana Pacers were offering the Sixers Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick for Ben Simmons. Whereas if you remember, during the 2021 season, there were rumors that Harden was actually going to be traded to the Sixers before he did a year or so later, and Ben Simmons was a part of that deal. So you went from trying to get James Harden to now Malcolm Brogdon. And obviously that was not enough to make the Sixers contend. So what the organization had to do was that they had to wait a really long time until we could actually get an offer that would make us, able to contend for a championship. Although in that offseason, we added, Andre Drummond, Georges Niang. We added some pretty solid role players, but we knew at that point that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were not going to work, and that Ben Simmons was an absolute loser, and he had to get out of town. He eventually did that when we traded for James Harden, and regarding all of the offers that we were getting at the time, it was a good decision. Whether that was the best decision, though, at the time is still up to debate even to this day, because credible sources like Jake Fisher were saying that, according to his league sources at least, that Tyrese Halliburton, the now all-star point guard who led his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, was actually on the table, and the Sixers would have been able to get him and more because he was a rising star. He wasn't an established star point guard yet, but he surely had a lot of potential, was young, is still young, athletic, really good shooter, really good defender, one of the best point guards in the NBA right now, and the Sixers could have got him and some role players and some draft capital for fraudulent Ben Simmons. But Daryl Morey had a plan. He wanted James Harden on his team. He thought that he and Embiid as a duo were going to be too dominant for defenses to handle. He had a vision, and he swung on it. So although you can give a good argument as to why Halliburton was the better trade, it's still understandable at least and fair to say the Sixers did make a good decision going for Harden, because given where we were at, given how terrible Ben Simmons' trade value was after we lost to the Hawks, it was one of the only ways we were still able to contend for a championship, and the organization just thought that a more solidified veteran point guard would help this team get to the top. And those who are Sixers fans at the time can attest to the fact that people were really excited for Harden to be on the team because we had one of the best facilitating point guards in the NBA, one of the smartest players who still proved to be a contributing player on winning teams, and he was now in the Sixers and can play next to Embiid and Maxey. So fans were excited, but obviously things did not really work out the way we wanted it to. Although the team was pretty successful, a lot of, during the honeymoon phase, of, Harden, Maxey, and Embiid working really well together. It just unfortunately became a dark reality that the roster was just not good enough, and that the organization just did not have enough roster flexibility given our financials, Tobias's contract in particular, to build an athletic, versatile team that was good enough to complement Embiid, Harden, and Maxey in a way that would put us over the top and get us to the Eastern Conference Finals and get us to the finals. And admittedly, it did suck having to lose in the second round 2 times again to the Heat and to the Celtics, 2 teams that were just simply better organizations than the Sixers for so long now, who just every year had so much depth, so much versatility, and solid coaching, where the Sixers lacked depth and they lacked coaching. You had Doc Rivers driving young players like Isaiah Joe out of town, and then you had Tobias Harris stinking it up like he always does and preventing the team from building an actual competent roster. But you had guys like Jalen McDaniels, Georges Niang, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton, DeAndre Jordan. They were like massive bench pieces that you were relying on in the playoffs, and it just wasn't working. But this is when things got interesting, because Harden's contract was one of the, more pressing issues within the organization itself. Because if you remember, he was traded to the Sixers on an expiring contract, but they were able to sign him again in the offseason, get him for 1 year, and then another year on a player option. And the organization essentially promised him that if he was able to, play well enough to merit a max contract, then he'd, get paid, get that bag. But by the end of the 2023 season, when we lost to the Celtics again in embarrassing fashion, just trust me, I was throwing a fit. I was taking all my posters down, all my jerseys, wanted to sell all my jerseys and stuff. I was done at that time. I was having a really big emotional reaction because, we were, promised all the success and stuff, but it just didn't work again. But, looking back in retrospective, this was actually the best thing that could have happened to the Sixers, because the persisting problems that were with this team for so long were Doc Rivers and Tobias Harris. They were just preventing you from winning at a serious level. Like, did we really think that Doc Rivers was going to lead us to help us win a championship in a significant way? I mean, we had to because we were passionate Sixers fans, but he just simply did not have the adjustment making. It was always getting outcoached, and Tobias was just being Tobias. So this kind of gives me to the crux of the video here, and how James Harden actually helped the Sixers out in really impactful ways that we should actually be grateful for. And not grateful in a sense that, James was being really, courteous and mature or whatever in dealing with the situation and all that stuff, because he wasn't. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Him flying to China, saying that Daryl Morey was a liar and whatever, just making a big ruckus, was really weird, in fact. And he's a massive diva. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. But his attitude and his behavior actually helped the Sixers remove their biggest problems, that being their coaching and lack of depth. Obviously, the actual biggest reason why the Sixers haven't really succeeded was because Embiid just is always unhealthy and stuff. But regardless, those were 2 extremely huge issues that Harden helped remove. Let's not forget that Harden had a big conflict with Doc Rivers. It was sort of, under the table. Not a whole lot of Sixers fans actually knew what was going on. It was more of like an inside locker room thing. But eventually the reporters were able to get the scoop on everything, and it was revealed that Doc Rivers was just not really liked within the locker room, and especially with James Harden. So in order to help, I guess, appease Harden, the Sixers booted Doc out. And we never have to watch a Doc Rivers system ever again. And that alone should be, great, make us feel grateful or whatever. But obviously with Harden's contract, they weren't going to give it to him. And the fit that he threw helped us get that roster flexibility, all of that cap space. Because if we were able to lock up, if we did lock up James Harden into that max contract, then we'd essentially have another Tobias Harris issue. You'd have a player who would, not actually be worth a max contract, be paid like he was on a max contract. And Harden was, although he was a good fit, I'd say that the chemistry that he had with Embiid in the pick and roll, it was really valuable. I think it could have worked if we just had a lot better circumstances as an organization, but it just simply was not good enough. And it would have really hurt us on the back end of those years. So we would have been stuck financially again, having to pay Harden all of that money. Tobias, he'd eventually be gone and stuff, but it'd still be a uphill battle in terms of building a good enough roster. So Harden leaving, Harden getting traded for all of the additional role players and draft capital, that helped set the Sixers up for a really big amount of cap space that was eventually able to let Tobias leave, finally get him out of here, and help the Sixers drastically improve their roster. I'd argue that Paul George is a much better fit next to Embiid and Maxey because he's more of an off-ball guy. He doesn't need to demand the ball handling responsibilities as much as Harden needed to. And I think he's just overall a lot more of a versatile scorer and a much more capable defender than Harden is. His off-ball shooting is extremely valuable, and Sixers fans are going to understand that this season. But regarding the issues of Doc Rivers and Tobias Harris, Harden, through his rioting and all of the antics he was throwing, it inadvertently and indirectly actually helped the Sixers get rid of their biggest issues, whether we like it or not. You also can't deny the impact that Harden had on one Tyrese Maxey. Recently, they are working out together on the annual Rico Hines summer training camp, and Harden, during a motivational speech or whatever, he was talking to the younger players and sort of called out Maxey. He said he's someone that you should look up to and look to emulate, because Maxey recently, he got that big bag and such, and it seems to be that Harden had a really good influence on him while they're teammates on the Sixers. Maxey, during a lot of interviews, podcasts, or whatever, he's always talking about how good of a teammate Harden was and how good of a mentor he was as he was developing into an all-star player, which is cool to see because Harden, as much as things didn't work out in Philly, he's still, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. Took those Rockets teams to a lot of really good records and a lot of really deep playoff runs. Of course, they didn't get to the finals. They never even got to the finals, but nonetheless, they had really successful seasons and had legitimate chances to win championships, but they just always ran to the KD Warriors. But Harden has shown, throughout his career as an MVP, that he's capable of being a franchise-level player. He knows what it's like. Although he wasn't like that in Philly, he wasn't his prime in Philly, but he was in Houston, and he was the main ball handler, and that's someone that Maxey, I guess, can really relate to because he's going to be expected to be that sort of player as Embiid goes into the later stages of his career. Maxey, given his contract now, he's an established all-star player. He's going to be expected by both the organization and fans to be the next franchise player for the Sixers. Those are obviously a lot of big shoes to fill, but I think Harden's mentorship for Maxey really helped him out a lot and helped clear stuff up for him in his career going forward. So although the James Harden era for the Sixers were a lot of controversy, a lot of drama, really similar actually to the Ben Simmons fiasco and all of that, it actually gave me a better outlook for the Sixers in the future because all teams, as much as we like to always harp on and focus on all of the playoff disasters and such and how they were especially embarrassing, we got to remember that all the championship teams like the Bucks, the Nuggets, even the Warriors and stuff, they all went through a lot of tough times over the years, but they eventually were able to reach that pinnacle. Even the Celtics too, they had a lot of heartbreaking losses in the conference finals. All those teams who were much more successful than the Sixers, let's not forget that they had a lot of rough seasons as well and rough endings to their seasons that they didn't want to have. So although Harden, he's probably not the most well-liked Sixer ever, I think his impact for the future of the team as well as for the future of Maxey makes me a lot more confident actually for the success of the Sixers going forward. Anyway, if you survived my yap session, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for your boy. Thank you for 50 subscribers. I remember a month ago I had 28, but now we have 50. So I mean, we're getting there. I really enjoy doing this. I want to keep grinding on this YouTube channel. Hopefully before the season starts, I can be able to set up a live stream and stuff so we could do watch-alongs or whatever. But yeah, I thank you guys so much. If you survived my yap session, let me know in the comments. If you disagree with anything I said, please make sure to do that too. I just wanted to bring a new perspective to the table. Yeah, peace. Music.